Next in line here is a panel discussion on data-driven approach towards skills and competencies measurement, moderated by Praveen Deshpande. Praveen Deshpande is a consultant in educational technologies from India. He has about 22 years of success in strategy and conceptualization, P&L, identification of new business development, consultancy, profit center operations, and much more. He has a proven career in conceiving and implementing effective ideas and strategies, and has been a leader in entrepreneurial skills with expertise in training, contract, manpower, assessments, talent management, skill development, and edtech solutions. With that, I invite Mr. Praveen Deshpande to moderate the next session. Praveen, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you, Gopal. First of all, good evening and good morning to all of you. Very big thanks to the sponsors and organizers to having me on this important session. It's been an exhilarating experience for all of us to have going through so many important, enriching, knowledge-based speakers. However, I feel most of it sums up when you start talking about how the legacy data and the dynamic data are used in the technology, the world of talent, and how do you create the future of learning. And I'm sure this session is going to be as accelerating as the previous ones, and more so because we have three eminent academicians and practitioners and speakers to ensure that we get into that mode. So we have three speakers, and we thought, due to the paucity of time, let me invite the first speaker, Dr. Nora Macrae. Yeah, Professor Nora Macrae, just to start the introduction very she is an associate provost. She is a cooperative and experiential education and adjunct professor at the University of Waterloo, Canada. Through her involvement in cooperative education, work integrated learning, and community engagement, she has led strategic program development and research on the development of quality work integrated learning framework, student engagement, work integrated learning, and intercultural competence development. Dr. McRae has received awards for her work from Canadian CWIE from 2012, 2014, 2016, and CWIE 2020, and CEIA American 2020, and World Associations Recognized 2017. Dr. McRae has 25 plus publications, including in the International Handbook of Cooperative and Work Integrated Education, the International Journal of Work Integrated Learning, and CPA Journal has become one of the most in-demand work of Dr. McRae. I'm honored to call upon her, to enlighten us as to how work integrated learning prepares talent for future work. And I'm sure the next 15 minutes of her enriched experience would enthrall us and take us to the next level of work integrated learning. Professor Nora Macrae, and we would love to listen to this.
Thank you very much, Praveen, for the very, very gracious welcome and the very nice introduction. And I appreciate being invited to this entire event. Thank you to all the organizers. If someone has made me a co-host, I'll share my screen, which would be great.
Yes, Professor, you could go on.
You are already a co-host. You should be able to share.
You are a co-host.
Okay, good. I see that now. Okay, and I will go quickly through my material here. And you should be able to see the slide deck now, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So what I'm going to focus my comments on, and I think it builds very nicely on the commentary of Ashutosh, and then also the very interesting 2 videos that we saw of young talent, because what I'm going to talk about is bringing young talent into an organization's talent pipeline through a very particular strategy, and that strategy is work integrated learning. But before I begin, as is the practice in Canada, I do want to acknowledge that the University of Waterloo, where I work, where the work was created, is located on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people, and that the University of Waterloo is situated on the Haldimand Tract, the land promised to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on either side of the Grand River. And our active work towards reconciliation takes place across our campuses through research, learning, teaching, and community building, and is centralized within our Office of Indigenous Relations. A little bit about the university. We are located in southwestern Ontario, about an hour's drive from Toronto. We've been in place for over 60 years, and the university started with, right from its inception, with a program called Cooperative Education, where students work. They go to school and then they work in workplaces in paid 4-month paid work terms. Then they come back and they do an academic term. Then they go back and they work, and they rotate in and out for 5 or 6 work terms throughout the course of their undergraduate degree. Every year we do over 21,000 of these students working in over 120 programs across the institution. We engage with over 7,000 employers in over 60 countries. And because these work terms are paid while the students are learning on the job, the students generate for themselves about $270 million in salaries, which does help finance their degrees. We know that, and this has been clearly articulated by all the previous speakers, that there is a global talent shortage. And this is a big concern for CEOs and organizations around the world. We also know that we're in a very unsettled and unusual world right now, and that's been also highlighted by previous speakers. There is a great deal of this world, we refer to it as a VUCA world, with climate change, globalization, tech change, all sorts of things going on. Don't need to talk about that anymore because we're right in the midst of it. But this volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity calls on all of us to think about how we prepare young talent and emerging talent and how we bring them into our organization. I'm just going to carry on. There's a lot of reverberation here, but I'll just keep going. There's been talk also about the shift to Industry 4.0, and I've added in 5.0 because with AI and other technological advances that have also been mentioned, there is this increasing personalization, use of data, and how people are looking for that more individual experience and ability to have that agility and flexibility. Coupled with that are some trends that we see for the future of work. And these trends have been identified by the research done in our Work Learn Institute. And none of this should be a big surprise, but technological advances. So the talent we have needs to be able to learn and continue to learn very quickly throughout the course of their careers, because tech is just changing so much, and that's not going to change. There's a shared responsibility for adaptation. A traditional approach would have been student goes to university, the university trains up the student or the college, the student comes into, the young talent comes into an organization, and really the learning is on them. But this needs to be shared between the organization that helps continue to provide an environment for ongoing learning, the individual themselves, and also governments that have an obligation to set the stage to enable talent to be trained. Skill agility and transferability. This is, the world is changing so quickly. No matter what you hire a person for, it is those capabilities that they can continue to evolve depending on the needs of the situation. There is a greater need for diversity and inclusiveness in organizations and workplaces so that all talent can show up in a good way and be allowed to show up in a good way. Because in not embracing diversity and inclusiveness, we continue to put barriers to allowing excellent talent to come into our workplaces. With the VUCA world and the future of work, there's a lot more precarious work, gig work. And by that, I mean, the breakdown of a traditional career into projects, contracts, entrepreneurial ventures, so that an individual also has to be better prepared to come in and out of workplaces that instead of a long career trajectory. And the final point in the future of work is employee versus organizational values. And the previous presentation talked about this actually. The whole individual needs to be considered, what they think are important and their values, and how the organization's values are articulated and match will result in higher degrees of recruitment and retention. So if we don't deal with these things, there will be, and we don't get the right talent, and we don't address some of these needs of the future of work, we will be jeopardized, of course, because our most important asset are our human beings. So let me get to work integrated learning and why that's a strategy. Work integrated learning, and it's referred to in different ways around the world: internships, stages, practicums, cooperative education. But it's basically where a student is studying at an institution, a particular course of study. Then they have an opportunity to work within a legitimate workplace setting where they are applying the skills and they are deepening their learning, and they are partnering with an institution. So it's a three-way partnership between an academic institution, a student, the learner, and an employer or a host organization. And the point is that the students are applying the skills they're learning, deepening their understanding, developing more skills and capabilities, and continuing to complete that cycle. So by the time they graduate, they are very job ready, as well as have those personal capabilities that will allow them to navigate a volatile workplace. In the Canadian context, we have mapped out 9 different types of work integrated learning. And if you want to know more, there's a Canadian association called CWIL, CEWIL, which provides very good explanations of each of these types of work integrated learning. So as I've mentioned, there's cooperative education, which is the dominant form at my institution. Students alternate academic term, paid work term, academic term, and they do that 5 or 6 times. There are apprenticeships, internships, entrepreneurship, where students start their own business, service learning, where students are working in community, field placements, practicum, such as nursing or social work or teaching, research projects, and general work experience. Those are the 9 basic categories. Because this type of learning is quite extensive in the Canadian context, you'd be hard-pressed to find a university or a college that does not do some form of work integrated learning to prepare our students for the future of work. So what is the role that it plays in building a talent pipeline? As I've mentioned, most universities or colleges do offer programs such as this. Students do add value to organizations in the work that they do. They also gain real work experience and valuable skills. And organizations gain this fresh perspective, young ideas, and connection to current research or technologies that are being deployed at a university. At our institution, we've also identified the specific skills, and as the previous speaker spoke to, the currency are skills and capabilities that we want our students to develop as a result of engaging in work integrated learning. So we've been very clear on identifying what are the skills and capabilities we think our students need to be ready for the future of work. And we created this future ready talent framework. And it's made out of 4, there are 4 key categories. Students need to be able to expand expertise. And by that, that's the technological agility, having information and data literacy, and having the context-specific knowledge and skills that relate to their discipline or the context of the employer. Plus, they need to develop self, which is self-assessment, self-management, lifelong learning, and career development. Plus, they need to be adept at building relationships. That's communication, collaboration, intercultural effectiveness, and designing and delivering solutions. That's the critical thinking, an innovation mindset, and being able to implement solutions they come up with. So those 4 big categories and the 3 within them make up the 12 future-ready talents that we want all our students to be developing during their work integrated learning and their academic program. When we talk to our employers, because we have a very high level of employer engagement that come in and hire our students and come year after year after year, They are very interested in hiring our students because it allows them to try new talent and to start that talent pipeline. They bring them in, they're in a work term, and they see whether or not that student's going to work well and be able to contribute. They also like the innovation that students create, and our students do bring lots of innovation and new ideas and fresh ideas to employer workplaces. They also bring unique perspectives because they come from a variety of different backgrounds and discipline areas. And this also adds new thinking into an organization, which can be very important, especially now. So our university, because we have so much cooperative education going on, 93% of our employers say that it was a positive return on investment. We had a study done by Deloitte just before COVID, actually, that indicated that in that 1 year, 2018 to 2019, our co-op program contributed $567 million to Canada's GDP in terms of jobs created because of the work of the students and labor income. And that for every dollar spent, basically, companies got $2 in return for their investment in hiring a student. And that equaled over $525 million that employers received of value from having a student in their organization. And remember, these are students who are learning at the same time. So it's a very powerful way for students to learn, employers to benefit, and get that talent into your pipeline. So I won't go into this in great detail, but these are the implications for the future of work and how having new and emerging talent in the workplace and how work integrated learning prepares them for this work is because you have students coming in and out of the classroom and the workplace. They are always exposed to new technology. They're having to adapt very quickly. They're having to transfer that into new contexts. They're engaged in a wide range of different kinds of individuals and teams because they're doing work for short periods of time that does prepare them for the gig economy and precarious work if that's how they end up going. And it also is a very powerful way for young people and emerging talent to clarify for themselves what their values are and how they want to show up in the world and the world of work. So in conclusion, work integrated learning is a very powerful strategy to combat the challenges of the future of work. It exists in many different forms, and I would be I'm quite sure that in your own local communities, you will find some form of work integrated learning at your post-secondary institution that's in your own local community. If you want to know about what's going on with work integrated learning globally, I would encourage you to connect with us in the World Association. So that's wace.org, where we have institutions from around the world who are interested in work integrated learning and how to do this in their own context, joining. We also, in the World Association, have a number of activities to help you connect in, including something called the Global Student Challenge, where students from our partner institutions can work together in interdisciplinary teams on projects and work that relate actually to the UN SDGs. And finally, if you want to know about how we do work integrated learning at the University of Waterloo, you're more than welcome to please connect with me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor McRae. It was very enriching to understand how the University of Waterloo has attained its successes to work integrated learning, and your experiences matter a lot to us. So we've been getting a lot of queries. So very two important queries I thought let me share. And we would love to have your comments on that. The first one is, since you have attained so much of successes in work integrated learning, and definitely there are other countries looking forward to see how they can really get those successes. But the first question we would like to understand is that what challenges did you face when you started implementing this, and what kind of challenges did you face? And secondly, as you said, work integrated learning is more to do with students working at the workplace and field placements. So how the conventional curriculum can attain the credits and ensure that the student is forward looking? So these are two questions which I think most of the countries are looking forward to listen.
Well, thank you for the questions. And of course, they're very, very complicated questions, but I'll try and be as succinct as possible. If you think about the challenges of establishing work integrated learning, I think that you think about the key partners. So there are challenges within an institution because there needs to be commitment from the institution, from the academic leadership of an institution, that this is a legitimate and important mechanism for students to learn and understand their subject matter. So that, I think, is an important challenge. If that vision is there in an academic institution, then all sorts of other things can be sorted out, like scheduling and curriculum and that sort of thing. But if that commitment isn't there, it's very difficult for work integrated learning to thrive in a meaningful way in an institution. I think the other part for an institution is having a common way of thinking about learning. That's why for us, the Future Ready Talent Framework is so important, because it provides a conceptual framework around learning outcomes that can be happening in an academic program as well as in a workplace. And in total, the students have an understanding of what they're moving towards. And that also provides a learning frame around what we're doing. So those are some mechanisms to help overcome the challenges in the institution. The challenges for industry are, if it's not something that's commonly used in the community, is convincing them really of what students can contribute. There's a sense that young talent really can't contribute very much, and actually they're more of a nuisance than a help. But if you set the conditions well in a place of business, and by setting them well, that means some clear supervision, very clear tasks, very clear assessment and feedback, which is fair and supportive, you will get a lot out of that young talent. They will just blossom and contribute in ways you can't possibly imagine. So I think that's been our experience, and we've been involved in this for 64 years. And this is why we have companies coming back year after year after year after year, because yes, sometimes it can be awkward bringing young talent into your workplace, but it's also good for your employees to have to adjust to it. It kind of smartens them up too. So I think there's that conversation with local industry and community, and we really need to allow our emerging talent to flourish. I think that's really important as a society, actually. And then the third community or partner or stakeholder really are the students themselves, helping them understand, and their parents, depending on the context, the parents and the influence of the parents may be very important here, helping them see that this is a good way for them to make connections. I think one of the previous videos, a young gentleman from, I think, a university in Assam made that point. How does that person connect to industry? How does that person start their first job? How do they build their network? Well, this is a way for them to do that. And a very powerful way for them to build a CV or a resume and the skills to do that important job search so that they can go out and find their own way.
Thank you, Professor McRae. I think that was very, enriching for us that, commitment and leadership is more important for the other worlds to look at it. And I'm sure we are all going to come back to you to understand more in depth. Thanks a lot. I think it was a great opportunity for us to learn from you. I know it was an early morning for you, but thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. The next speaker who has continued the journey, I think, similar to Dr. McRae, I would love to introduce Dr. Jedsada, a very interesting speaker. I would love to introduce a little bit more about him. Dr. Jedsada is one of the university lecturers working in cooperative and work integrated education in Thailand from last decade. He himself was awarded Sustained Superior Performance Award by Cooperative Education Network of the Higher Central Region, Office of the Commission of Higher Education, Royal Thai Government in 2016. An Outstanding Service Award for Industrial Engineering and Operations Management in 2019. He was a former member of the board of directors of Thai Association for Cooperative Education. He has been behind many students who received national and institutional best practice award for cooperative education project and support graduate success in employability and growth the careers for the last 2 decades. Not only sending students from education institutes to work at workplace during their academic program for talent ecosystem, he also designs, develops, and trains tailor-made training courses for professions in industry. Moreover, he's a consultant under the Thai government projects for manufacturing and logistics businesses. He's now teaching in Logistics Management International Program, Associate Dean and Chair of Cooperative and Integrated Education at International Academy of Aviation Industry, King Mokul Institute of Technology, Thailand. And I really invite Professor to enlighten us more on the communication and skill assessment of cooperative and work integrated education to the employability and his successes and his experiences, what he has had in his last 2 decades of experiences. Professor, you are welcome and we are honored to have your presentation.
Thank you for a wonderful introduction. It's my pleasure for me also to present, to talk, to share experience in this conference. So let me share my slide. Good afternoon, everyone participating in this conference. My talk today will talk on communication and skill assessment for cooperative and work integrated education toward employability. So many people already mentioned that skill from World Economic Forum. So once again, let me repeat, specific to Thailand, this is a report from World Economic Forum that skill required in case of emergent skill that is identified as being in high demand with the organization order by frequency. So number 1, that is analytical thinking and innovation. Number 2, complex problem solving. Number 3, take active learning and learning strategy and critical thinking and analysis. So 1 to 3, that is skill. So from several skill, that knowledge, skill, and attitude will become competency. Everyone understand this. But in the education institute, we develop, we produce graduates. We have the qualification for them. But qualification we develop from university. We produce graduates from university, but what the industry requires is a competency. Many people already explained what is competency, how important for industry. So I don't want to repeat that. Anyway, I want to share some experience that how we work together with industry, and we can satisfy the demand for competency, and how we develop our graduate to supply to the workplace and relevant to their qualification. So how we prepare graduates already in the workplace, we have to work together, university, industrial workplace, and student. So before I go further, let me mention cooperative education in Thailand. Actually, cooperative education in Thailand is the education model with student alternate traditional academic semester with the semester spent working in full time in their chosen field. So cooperative education was first introduced in Thailand by Professor Dr. Vijit Sisaan. He is a founder of University of Suranari University of Technology. And now he is the president of the Thai Association for Cooperative Education. And he is the father of Thai cooperative education. So the success of implementing this concept evident by the high employability of the graduates from the university and had resulted in embracing cooperative education by many universities in Thailand until now. So Dr. Nora, she mentioned about work integrated learning, and from work integrated learnings, we have some others 9 model under work integrated learning. So cooperative education also one of them. In Thailand, actually, we have earlier we have 2 terms that we use in the academic. One is cooperative education. Second is work integrated learning. So just last few years, Commission of Higher Education in Thailand, the merged 2 terms. Follow World Association for Cooperative and Work Integrated Education. So they also use term cooperative and work integrated education. So that actually is term created by World Association for Cooperative Education to acknowledge and embrace our form of experience learning utilizes by industry and educational institutions to prepare next generation of global professionals. So cooperative and work integrated education, or CWIE, is the curriculum cooperated by higher education institute and external workplace to prepare graduates for the world of work completed with the competency to meet the needs of the job market and to develop career in the present and prepare for the future position. How we can work together amongst students and workplace and academic institution. So the purpose we develop graduate, we try to make them to understand themselves, understand people, and understand job when they graduate and work in the future. So understand themselves whether they really like the kind of job, when they study in the program, they may know something. Maybe people may introduce, they apply to education program because of some other reason. But when they join the CWIE job, they will understand more. They understand themselves. They understand the job, what kind of the context of job when they are working. Moreover, they also understand people working together, interpersonal skill also there. So from this, we apply CWIE to develop our graduate to have more competency, more skill, and make them ready for industry. So we have to work closely with 3 parties: job mentor at the workplace, student who are interested to join the program, and academic or research supervisor. So in Thailand, cooperative education, cooperative and work integrated education is not mandatory program. So still it's an option. It's optional. So students can choose based on their interest. So if they're interested to join the cooperative and work integrated education program, so we have the process. We have to work with the key partner. So for example, Mr. Chris, he already presented in the previous session. He is our key partner. We invite him to deliver lecture in our class. He running business in perishable air cargo logistics. We are in King Mongkut Institute of Technology, Ras Krabang. We are running program Logistic Management International Program. So himself come to introduce him to teach students. Also, he introduced his business, and some students interested to work in perishable air cargo. So then students apply for that, and he have the process to interview and select students. So myself as an academics supervisor, I look for the key person in the industry as a job mentor. Because if we cannot find the person who work as a job mentor, don't have enough time spare for student, don't have enough time to guide student. And when we put student in the workplace, then the students study and learning alone. That is not the right way. We cannot expect the learning outcome from the workplace. So as an academic institution, we also must be responsible for the learning outcome from the CWIE. So in this process, we have to communicate and identify the job mentor. If they fulfill the criteria, then we accept that, okay, you can accept our student and work in the certain period. From CWIE, it's different from university. Some university, they work in 1 semester, 2 semester, but at least for 1 semester, 4 months, 1 semester. But some university may have 2 semester or 3 semester. So that they have to identify job mentor before they sending students to the workplace. So the purpose is from last 2 decades. First decades, I worked with manufacturing. From last 5 years, I moved to logistic management field. So now, mostly I send students in the logistic business field. So anyway, we try to develop our graduate with the analytical skill and problem-solving skill. We have to work in the project-based learning in the workplace. During project-based learnings, they also can develop their analytical skill through CWIE. So if we separate in 3 phases, first we invite industry come to university, recruit our student, and then we have discussion what kind of project and who are job mentor and where they can work, and then student realize what kind of basic necessary knowledge, hard skill, technical skill they need. Some skill they can learn in the workplace, but some skill it need basic knowledge to know about that. For example, in case they go to work in the perishable air cargo, then they need to know something about perishable air cargo. They need to know IATA regulation for logistic management, for air transportation, something like that. So that is fulfill criteria for the workplace. And then they're also happy. They don't need to train everything. They train something that students cannot study in the university. University also train something that in the workplace cannot train students. So that once they're ready, they move to, we prepare them. First we know, and then we prepare them 1 semester before sending them to the workplace. Once they go to the workplace, they work in routine job. Also, they work in the project-based learning. So if we separate in the phase, we can have the 5 phases. Step 1, student apply. Company selects the candidates. The second is we prepare them. We call pre-CWIE. So second step, students still study in the university, but they know for the next semester where they're going to work for CWIE project. So what is the technical knowledge? What is the basic knowledge? What is the basic skill they need to understand? For example, some company, they need the Excel, Microsoft, and some computer literacy, some digital literacy, some technical skill, Google SketchUp or something. That is the criteria for selection. So university will provide this criteria, and we announce to student, and student apply for that. When they got selected, and then for the second step, they prepare something. They know what scope. They don't know exactly what is the project, but they know scope, and they know department, they know division they're going to work, and they know the job mentor. They the person he going to work, and that's third step. So we send them to the workplace, and within during the first months, they learn in the workplace. They identify the problem, and then during this time we have communication between student and job mentor. This we have discussion. Earlier we have before COVID-19, I have to visit the industry. People not adapt with the online meeting yet. But after COVID-19, people familiar with the online meeting. So now today, for the fourth step, we also have the meeting through online meeting with Zoom or some other method. Application depend on the convenience of the staff in the company. Zoom is one that's popular. So we have now we have Zoom meeting in the fourth step. But in some case, we also make a physical visit. So after we identify the problem, we have the proposal development, and we have the meeting for proposal confirmation. After that, students, they work as a project base in the company. They conduct the research, conduct the project, and develop the method. They will implement the method of new solution. So after they complete the 4 year, they return back to university. Then they have the reflection, they have presentation, maybe some work can do for publication. So also we can what I can say, learn from industry what some competencies, some skill that lacks of that. We can get feedback from the company, and then we can develop in next batch student. So this part, this is some activity that we work together with the Freshport from King Mongkut Institute of Technology, Lajkrabang, and Freshport Cargo Limited. So this process actually is looked at, it go easy, but communication before we sending students to the workplace is really important, and we have to communicate several times that to make sure what people understand. But luckily that Mr. Chris, he's welcome, and he want to contribute to the society for education. He also contribute as the salary to our student during working in the company. So challenges in the communication of CWIE, that actually we need communication with the right information for the recruitment, selection, right candidate to the right CWIE position. So then we can get the eligibility and suitability. Because when we if we don't have the standard platform to communicate, many times I start with one person. After 1 year, that person resign from the company. So that it's difficult to start a new one again. And so it's better to talk and have the key person with the top management and CEO or something like that. So that it can go sustainability. So job mentor and academic supervisor are the critical factor for developing analytical and problem-solving skill. Job mentor, academic supervisor, and student must communicate closely for the project-based learning at the workplace. So during this, if we have some communication platform that we can support to evaluate it, because CWIE, we need measurement, we need evaluation, and we need competency as assessment. We cannot leave student work alone, and then after 4 months, and then we say you passed this program. It's not like that. It needs the evaluation and assessment, and also this must comply with the curriculum standard, and we can produce the graduate with employability. So that's all my talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. I think it was a very in-depth experiences we have heard from you. the kind of successes you have got, and also, how you have managed to put your students into the logistics and how you have created that ecosystem. We have so many questions for you, Professor, but keeping in mind, I'm sure you'll be able to, and we'll be happy to answer them offline, as we have another guest of ours and speakers waiting. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for being part of this. I think we have the next speakers one's going to be most interesting for us, because the kind of knowledge, the experience he brings, and the kind of stories he is going to bring us is going to be exhilarating. Let me call upon Dr. Sudeep Mohandas. Before him, let me give a small introduction about him. He's the Executive Director, the Center of Global Inclusion. He's a graduate from Biodiversity, Hawaii Pacific University, majored in HRM, and is a PhD from Health University in 2014. Has over 25 years of very rich experience in human resource, ICT, and also a very interesting journey he has been a worldwide fund CEO Malaysia, and is very keen on soccer and has been also part of the soccer coach. Not extending too much about himself, I'm sure he will definitely make it very interesting. However, I would love to understand, and we all would love to hear some very interesting stories as you've been talking to us about biases in data and how is it going to transform or inherit the characters into learning and talent ecosystem. Doctor, this is your forum and we are ready to go on.
Thank you very much, Praveen. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here for this amazing conference. It's certainly an honor. Certainly, thank you very much. And I know many of you will be expecting a set of slides, and I have deliberately actually omitted the slides for the simple reason of my topic, which is on biasness in data. And I'm trying to actually make the point here as that I would like you to hear me out. And I'm hoping at the end of the day, instead of me giving you answers, I'm hoping that I'll give you more questions. I'm looking into the fact that at the end of the day, that you will actually have an insight into an area where I'm particularly focused on as the Executive Director to the Center for Global Inclusion, and that's on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm going to start by first raising a point here, is that when we are talking about talent, there are certain biases that are coming onto play, especially when technology comes in. First of all, let me just tell you that as we are having this conference, in many cases, in many conferences, in many Zoom, we, for whatever reason, we tend to omit the closed captioning. Closed captioning is a very important component to our conferences, not for the simple reason that it's also for the people who are actually having hearing impaired, but also for those people who can't understand the accents or understand the way people speak. And so we are actually losing out on the opportunity for other talents to actually understand and appreciate where we're coming from. So to me, closed captioning should be a mainstream already in the way we actually doing things, because there's an assumption that we are telling that everyone is able to hear, everyone is able to understand. The other element, of course, we will understand that technology on its own is unable to actually point out in terms of what it means by what people say. So I'm going to drive you with certain narratives and certain areas for hopefully that you'll actually raise some questions in your own minds as to how you want to move when it comes to especially talent management. So before I touch on the bias and the data, it is first important to first recognize that the issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion is now in its revival stage. We would have heard of George Floyd from the US, But let me tell you, there has been hundreds of thousands of George Floyds before him. Many issues that have been going on, some have not been heard. And that's what we call as a cancel culture, which means that whatever comes out is not heard. And this is one of the elements of biasness in data. We don't actually have everything included. And so we miss out and we omit. Okay. So what more when it matters, especially in talent management, when we are saying we're looking for talent and we can't find talent, but maybe it's also in the way we actually set up our road to actually finding talent is perhaps where the mistake is in the beginning. So since we are in the age of technology and AI, I want to emphasize that management cannot ignore this issue anymore. There's no time to be ignorant. We have to appreciate that. United Nations has said in 2025, 1 in 5 people will have some disability. I'm sure all of you will know someone in your family who is either having hearing problems or having some issues with regard to their senses or whatever. It's getting closer, which means that you'll be hiring talent with disabilities who are not admitting to it. So this is one key thing you must understand. So to make you understand what I mean, let me share with you some real stories that I hope can draw the point of what I'm trying to say. And like I said, I'm hoping that you can actually have some questions at the end of the day that more than answers. And I'm hoping that through the questions, you'll be able to find your way as how to want. So let me share with you real story number 1. There was a person who wanted to enjoy the service of having his telephone payments be paid using the auto-pay function. And you all know what auto-pay is. He discovered that by enjoying this function, he can receive a discount to his bill. The problem was the auto-pay function works well for those who know they are receiving a secure salary monthly, and on that particular day, the auto-pay will be made. This is what auto-pay is, right? You get paid on you know that the function will actually work on that particular day. But because this person works many jobs and could not guarantee he will have the amount of money, all right, and people today are in the stage where they don't have a secure job, he couldn't actually enjoy this auto-pay. And many companies give you auto-pay with a discount. They say if you have auto-pay, you get less money. So what about those poor people who can't guarantee they're going to get a monthly income? If they can't guarantee, they're not going to enjoy the discount. So the poor get poorer. So here we are setting up a system to marginalize people. Just like that, auto-pay without even knowing. Another story is to let you know about Joe Jackson. He speaks on the phone to a consultant and makes a complaint about an issue. The consultant has never met Joe before and does not know Joe. The data on his system says he's white, male, and is retired. What the consultant does not know is that Joe Jackson has just recently changed and now he's a transgender and goes by the name of Joanne. The data was not changed in the system. There could be many reasons for it, but what it does create is assumptions now that because I'm hearing you on the phone and you sound like a male and your name is Joe, you must be this. So immediately, just on a phone call, just by hiring or speaking to someone on a phone call, certain biases are brought in because you have certain things that are written down. Immediately, you're already discounting certain things. And so when you find your expectations are not met, immediately omitted. And you say you can't find talent. Perhaps that person was the talent. Another one is studies have shown coconut oil improves cognitive functions, metabolism, hair, and skin health. This was known before. Yet, for a long time, in India, it was known a very long time before, but for a long time in the West, it was declared by the West to be unhealthy. We all know, those in India will know, those in Asia will know. AI sorts of the data was shared to confuse the public, and they worked on it. And it became after one generation, people lived without coconut oil, thinking it was bad. And that was basically a strategy. What kind of data that tells you that coconut oil is bad for you, and then after that tells you it's good for you right now? What data are we looking at? So in the same perspective, we're looking for talent. We look for people and we say that this person is not good for this job, but And then later on, we find out that person is really good for the job. What data are we looking at? Another story is basically history. Now, we know that history is a subject matter that's taught in many institutions. Goes back into our data archival of information that we have in our office, right? Now, does it really tell a real story on the ground? How much of what happened in the past is taught or actually explained when you actually join an organization? How much of the past are you actually told? Okay. Anything else that is not told is always considered to be untrue or fake, which means that you can join an organization and I can immediately cancel you out when you leave the organization. Somebody else will join and never would have heard about you on paper. So all your work would have actually gone. So how do you actually recognize and reward talent when you immediately remove them? And this happens many times. And so all that work that you have done all the time is completely removed because you may have had some issues. But actually that was good work. This happens many times. Just on the fact that we look at the data and we say we remove it. No. And by removing it, what happens? We've actually done a cancel and we've actually omitted some historical information that we have valued. This is actually happening right now. Whatever platform that we have, whatever technology we introduce, we are making certain decisions that will actually impact the future. Whatever we do, and that's how we manage our data. So what does all this tell you? The common definition of data bias is that available data is not representative of the population or phenomenon of study. That's what I like to use the data bias differently. I like to say it should denote non-inclusion of the variables that probably capture the phenomenon. It has to be that now. The phrase data bias now must extend beyond just data and include the interpretation and how it is used. So let's go back now to talent management, okay? How does this all relate? Well, in 2018, Amazon declared it was removing its AI recruiting tool because it showed bias towards women. 2018, this is a true story, happened. They removed it because it's showing biases towards women. Women were not hired. And you were saying you can't find people, but it was actually the system. In December 2021, and this is just recently, the New York City Council passed a bill to do annual audits on hiring tools from vendors to see if there was any bias in hiring. They have now introduced audits on any hiring tools to see whether there's bias. In other words, it's quite clear the algorithms are showing some biasness in how we are hiring people. There's a rise concern about this. And in Japan in 2000s, the big issue was the fact that they found that many jobs were moved to robotics. But the problem with these robotics, it was pushed into sexism, which meant that most of the robots that they were putting into these jobs were feminine, were females, female robots. Secretaries, over the cash counter robots were all female. So sexism was coming into it. Why is that so? You wouldn't do that if you didn't understand the situation. In November 2021, there was a call for an Indian-centric AI. Why was this? Because AI platforms from US-based companies were making mistakes despite being technologically advanced when it came to analyzing images. For example, an Indian wedding where the bride is wearing a red color sari was depicted as an event, but a white gown bride was depicted as a wedding. What has happened here? The US, with only 4% of the worldwide population, constitutes 45% of the images. So where is the bias coming from? So there we go. We're not talking about just text bias, we're talking about images and video, still and moving images. So as I mentioned about video conferencing as well, right? Now there was a case where I actually experienced, I was getting a person from India, Pune in India, talking to someone from the UK. And the closed captioning was capturing when she was saying, I'm from Pune and I live in Pune and all that. The person on the other end who was deaf could only read the closed captioning, was not reading Pune. It was coming out as porn, PORN. Now the closed captioning, I was sending her this guy the data, and he was wondering what is going on. Again, another issue we're having. So today we're having all sorts of matters that are really affecting us that make it very difficult. So how does a talent be productive if the workplace is not conducive to them? Especially when things are catered to the majority. Again, I put it point, in India, it was discovered that automatic soap dispensers did not work well with dark skin complexions. What kind of data is going that and making it difficult for people to work? How do you get talent? So you actually bring talent of a certain type. In the US, it was discovered that shampoo available in hospitals were catered to the Caucasians, not realizing the African Americans could not use it. The bias of data has led to people make assumptions to procure products, thinking everyone can use it. So as a talent, you try looking for talent, you are actually making it difficult for them to actually be productive. You want them to be productive, you want them to be happy, but in the process, in the technological sphere we're working in, things are making it a little difficult for them. In a simple application form, applying for a job, we write right there, your name, address, telephone number. But do we realize that when we're putting telephone number, we're actually discounting all the people who can't hear? They don't have a phone number. They have a text number. So below the phone number, you should put their text message number because they communicate using text. But we immediately discount them by just saying phone number, expecting us to speak to them. You're immediately discounting and marginalizing people. Again, how we set up the whole form is getting the kind of data that immediately puts people away. Let me end this. I'm not saying that we disregard data because of all the biases. What I'm highlighting here is that we must know what is happening in front of us and look to finding a solution to rectify it. In my sharing, I'm inevitably asking you to make this change now at your workplace, such that you'll be seen as an equal opportunity. This is where we're moving towards, equal opportunity in the true sense of the hiring of talent management systems. We need to take these steps. Finally, talent management is not about hiring talent, training them, and giving them a career track to grow. If we add bias to the system, we will perpetuate a system that allows for further imperfections, leaving behind the real talent that we are looking for. With that, I would like to end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sudeep. I think it was very interesting stories and experiences you have shared with us. And more so, you've given us a good homework to go back and understand what kind of questions we're going to come back to you. And it was necessary for us to understand the bias of the data and how talent management is getting biased in most of the country just because of the technology, as you had mentioned, or maybe just because of unrelated way of communication. So thanks a lot. I think it's been great listening to you. We are going to come back to you with a lot of questions then. And it has been equally great to be here on this occasion. I definitely would have wanted this to extend, but then we'll have to say somewhere, okay, we're going to come back again. So with this, thanks a lot for the speakers, and I would pass on this dais to Gopal. Please take over.
Thank you. Thank you, Praveen, for the enlightening session and all the panel speakers as well.